Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day. Thank you for joining us. I made a bit of a cock up this evening and I gave Jennifer the wrong time. So we've just quickly worked out that I actually did give her the wrong time because she's down in Florida. And who knew that there are actually 2 different time zones in Florida? And I gave her the wrong one, bless her. But she's rushed on to join us an hour earlier than she was expecting. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for joining. And I'm just going to, first of all, go through a couple of things like we always do before I forget, because it's the thing, if I don't do it at the beginning, I will forget. And since last year, when Jennifer was on with us, we have a lovely new sponsor who's sponsoring all of our lives this year for Big Barker beds, which are obviously massive in America and very popular here in the UK as well. And just really, really great beds for our arthritic dogs and can make a massive difference. And we're just so thankful for their sponsorship this year. Is making our lives a lot easier, and we're able to do a lot more as well. So thank you very much to Big Barker. And then just a little bit of housekeeping as we go through the live. As usual, please do jump in with your questions. I think this is going to be quite an interactive one because we're going to be talking about a really big area, and we're not going to be able to talk about everything to do with canine rehabilitation, but I was just saying to Jen at the beginning before we came live, it's a word that's thrown around a lot. I'm going to do rehab with my dog, or the vet has advised that I do some rehab, and actually, what does it mean? There's so many things. It's not like one thing. Rehab is not one exercise or one mode of managing your arthritic dog. So we're just going to touch a little bit on what it is, and then hopefully introduce some stuff that you can do at home and chat about things that maybe you wondering, should I do this? Could I do this? And just get our lovely Jen here, a specialist opinion on what she thinks. So without further ado, can I please pass over to you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background about what you do?
Yes, so my name is Jennifer Vitucci, and as Nicki mentioned, I live here in Florida in the Panhandle in the Central Time Zone, which is very confusing to everyone. And I apologize, we're in the middle of this massive thunderstorm, so if you can hear it, I hopefully it will pass soon. But I have been in general practice for 15 years now, and I am a certified canine rehabilitation therapist for about the last 3. And I also, some of you might have seen me on here because I do work for a pulse-vet shockwave company, which is a rehab modality. So we're going to touch just a hair on that as part of the overall modalities. But I got into rehab, I will be honest, my husband does a lot of orthopedic surgery. He's also a vet. So I did a lot of post-ops, but really the geriatrics and arthritis are the near and dear to my heart, because that was what motivated me, right? Because you can keep your dog with you longer, and I was able to prolong these relationships for my clients, and that is, in the 15 years, the most rewarding work I've ever done. And so if I can help, and your audience is so amazing, and you guys bring such good information, even just a little bit with some information about things that they can even do at home to help their pet, then I'm happy to do it today.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think when it comes to rehab, the post-op ones, there's a limited time that you're probably going to spend with them, isn't there? Because once they're back up and going, then that's kind of it. But with your arthritic patients, it's never fixed. It's always ongoing, and it's always a work in motion. You're always going to adapt and change things, and you do form some really lovely relationships with those pets and owners as well. And you just want to do your best, don't you? Because you can, you appreciate how much this means to them, and obviously you're a dog owner yourself, as am I, and we understand we would want the same for our own dogs. So yeah, it's slightly different with those patients, I think.
Yes, and because the owners, like everyone who's watching right now, they're so committed, right? And so they're so hungry for information, and they're so thankful and willing to do, and you're just kind of on a journey together. And I really, really appreciated that, and that trust and relationship that we got to form. It's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely is. So you only do rehabilitation now, don't you? That's your... all the time, and then your post-vet stuff.
Yeah.
So what kind of percentage of animals do you think you see that are arthritic in your rehab work?
Probably right now it's maybe 60-40. Because my husband still does surgery, right? So I still see those post-ops. But I always am craving the geriatrics. And a lot of those post-ops end up with arthritis, and we just move forward into the next relationship. So
yeah. And so if you were going to explain rehabilitation to somebody that had just heard it for the first time, how would you explain it to people?
So I think the big overreaching rehabilitation is that we want to take our patient using different manual therapies, exercises, and modalities, and obviously, of course, pharmaceuticals as needed. And we want to either return them to full function, we want to get them either performing to their highest, or we want to give them the best quality of life and function of their body that we can. And so I think we get to use all the tools in the toolbox to achieve that goal. And so with arthritis, rehabilitation to me means that we are going to get that pet the best quality of life and mobility that we can, regardless of the arthritis, and, prolong that relationship.
Yeah, I think because some people come in and they say, I want to do rehab because I want to increase the muscle mass and I want to increase the strength in the back leg, and it kind of is what you're doing, but it's not that. It's about improving, like you said, the quality of life, isn't it? And improving mobility and improving comfort more than anything. It almost doesn't matter if you're going to get more muscle mass. It's just what's going to make your dog more comfortable. And I think it's understanding more of why you're doing the rehab can help people then sign up and really be on board with it, I suppose, because some of those things that maybe you've got in your mind and you're not going to be doing, you're not going to get this really big, muscly, toned bulldog, sort of look to a collie or something. If that's not what we're looking for, we're looking for comfort and quality of life. And I think it's really interesting that how some people think about rehab, and it's not always that. So when you talk about your toolbox, what kind of things are you using where you are?
And so as far as, we always have our manual therapies. I always include that, your hands, right? Because they're so valuable. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but, massage and stretching and range of motion are very important things in the toolbox that owners at home can be taught to do, right? It's good bonding for your pet and makes them feel good, just like when we get it. And then, the modalities. So thinking about therapeutic laser, a pulsed electromagnetic field, right? A PEMF bed or a CC loop. And then, I obviously working in the pulse-vet shockwave. And that's a big scary term, right? Shockwave. And I know people hear it and aren't really sure what it is, but it is a high energy sound wave. And so that's what it is. And as I'm going through this storm, lightning and thunder is the best example of a sound wave, right? Like your house shakes and your windows shake, and that's sound energy. And so that's what the shockwave is doing. And there's places for all of those in rehabilitation mind, right? There's different places to use all of them to help with pain and inflammation and comfort and the health of the joint, right? And so I think all of those are important. And then you have your exercises. And, in clinic, right, we get to use fancy things like Cavaletti poles and balls and all of that, and underwater treadmills if we have it. But you don't have to have that stuff, right? Like you can, we can do all sorts of things without all of those tools in the toolbox. But it's really nice with something as complicated as arthritis to be able to have a little bit of everything, to give them the best chance for comfort and quality of life that we can.
Yeah. And it's going to vary, isn't it, depending on what kind of arthritis you've got and as to what you're going to need to do. So the exercises that we might be talking about this evening may not be okay for your dog, or they may not be okay for a dog with hip arthritis or elbow arthritis, depending on what you've got. And I think you said at the beginning there, it's always something that you would want to discuss with your vet or physio or or rehab vet, which we are getting more and more of in the UK now. I think it's still way behind what you guys are doing in the States, but we are getting more rehab vets, and there just aren't many close to a lot of people. But yeah, it's worth chatting through with them before you just start doing any of these things at home, would you say?
Yeah. Yes. Just like the disclaimer before you start an exercise program for yourself, right? They always say, just make sure that you're healthy. I try and do as, basic, easy, and give you good advice about when to use it, but just please double check, even with your general vet, if, just to make sure that everything seems safe for your pet to do. But I'm excited you guys are getting more. I will tell you, it is taking off here in the United States. Like, we are getting at vets. Yes. And it's awesome. And clients are like, they're looking for it, right? They want it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have more vets doing pain clinics now, but not proper rehab centers, because I think it's just we just don't have the training so much here. It's all over with you, and especially with COVID, it's just not really been possible to do very well. It's not really something you can do online over Zoom very easily, is that you really want hands-on. But there is, I think, everywhere there's just generally a much better understanding of arthritis now, and people, owners know more, and they're demanding more from their vets, which is good. So instead of us just sending people away with medications, we can and we should be talking about all these things, and hopefully have some rehab centers that we can point people in the right direction. It's not just, shouldn't just be referral, it should just be a standard thing, really.
Yes.
And
it's
so
that's here too. This is easy stuff that you can talk to your clients about it, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to have special training to like give good suggestions for things they can do at home. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, everything that I talk to my clients about, I have learned from Cam, and learned from doing these lives and watching lives with people, and they take it back into the consult room, or they actually ask me and say, did you see that Cam live? And I might not have seen it. And I go, oh, no, we didn't see that one. I must go and watch it, because you're going to ask me some really hard questions. But yeah, it's great. It's great just having all this information out there, and it's just stuff you can do at home, and it makes such huge difference, sometimes more than some of the pharmaceuticals could make. So it is so important. So where would you start, and what sort of things would you like to talk to us about this evening?
Yes. And so I was just going to start with basic. I want to go into some things that we can do at home, but I just want to touch on, we've already talked about it, but as you said, it's not just muscle mass we're building, right? So arthritis is so complicated, and when we have it in people, but what we want to do is help stabilize that joint. We want to lubricate that joint. We want it to remain flexible and open and be able to get in all the positions that it can get in, so that we don't start compensating in other areas, right? And so that is, we don't want to lose muscle mass. But as we said, sometimes in rehab, it can be a little frustrating, because we may not always make gains depending on where we're starting, but we're not going to lose, right? So I think it's just important to know like where your pet is, and maybe just what our goals are, because I think sometimes people, like you said, oh, I want him to be able to walk 3 miles again, and I want him to have these big leg muscles. And that may not be our goal, but maybe we're going to keep the leg muscle we have for 2 years. And so that's the importance, I think, of exercise specifically, right? Is really about flexibility, range of motion, and stabilization of that joint. And the more we can maintain the muscle or even build it, right, just the more comfortable they're going to be, the less they're going to compensate. And so it's just kind of a whole dog approach. And that's why I think about, even when we're talking about the exercises, like, we don't only want to work back legs or front legs, right? We want to work the whole dog to maintain all of those things, and just understand what our goals are. And so I wanted to make sure we started there, and that made sense to everyone before we got going.
Yeah, and that is something that, again, the more you look into it, the compensatory pain and the referred pain that these dogs get, and so you need to be targeting the whole body rather than just those areas. It's true, and it's often forgotten, because you get distracted by the problem and you miss these other little things, which is why people taking videos and sending them into vets or their rehab vets is really important, because you can spot those other little things that you may not be looking at when you're in the consult room. Really important.
Because you're just trying to, you're trying to get such a picture in a short amount of time. So, and then when you actually watch them at home and move around, and then you're like, oh, now I get it. I see something that I didn't see before. I didn't see when I was in the exam room, and we need to address that, right? Because even once we fix the primary issue, that compensatory or maybe referred pain might not be fixed just because we fixed that one. So just kind of keeping that whole dog in mind when we think about how we're gonna, keep them moving. And
yeah, definitely. And it should never be. One of the funny things that makes me laugh sometimes in a consult is they'll say to me, oh, it's lame on his left hind, and I say, okay, and I always start just at the beginning, so that's where I always start, at the head end, and work back. And people they almost look at me as if I'm stupid. No, I told you it was the left back leg. Why are you not listening to me? I said, no, but this is what we should all be doing. It should be standard now that we should be looking at the whole body. And
I know.
Worth reminding people.
I know owners are like, did you not hear me? You're looking at the other leg. I'm like, no, I
am listening.
Yeah, you gotta have that conversation. Like, no, we gotta look at the whole thing, and then I promise we're gonna address the like clearly the leg that's swollen or something. So
exactly.
They're looking at you like, are you doing it right?
I know. It's worth just saying at the beginning of the consult, isn't it? This is what I'm gonna do. Definitely.
Yes, we're gonna get there. I promise.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so what we had talked about before we started was and I'm going to go through just some of the basic exercises, but I try and make it, part of our day. Like that's part of my thing, because I think it's really hard on a lot of days to find even 15 minutes, right? If we're trying to do something for ourselves, it's hard to do. So it's, it's hard for all of us to get to our dog. So I want us to be thinking about our normal routine and all the things we can add that like can help with all of these problems with our arthritic dogs, right? It doesn't need to be like, okay, Saturday at 9 a.m., I'm going to spend this amount of time, right? It's little things that we can do every single day that really do make a big difference. And so can I dive right in? Is it time?
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want me to pop up the videos or?
In just a second. I know I have a couple videos of my own silly dog doing some of these exercises. So it's very entertaining. But so one of the things that we all do, right, is we take our dog for a walk at some point during the day. And that could be once a day, it could be twice a day, or whatever your routine is. And so very simple things that you can add to your walk, right? And my dog is the slowest walker on the planet. I have this 110-pound Bernese Mountain Dog. We're not trotting. He's not doing agility. But a simple thing that you can add is actually changing their gait, right? So a dog walking at a trot is a very efficient gait for them, right? Yeah. They're not using a lot of muscles because that's how they're designed to go. So I actually make my dog walk even slower. And I slow them down because they really have to put all 4 feet down. They go through the full stance phase, right? The full gait. And they push off with their back legs, and they have to weight bear on each limb. And so sometimes I'll do, from here 2 driveways down, we'll go slow. And then we'll
how do you slow him down?
He's on a leash. So I literally just like hold him and make him walk on my pace. So yeah, that's why I did the videos. Cause even when we talk about it, it helps to see it. And I didn't do a slow walking video, but so yeah, I just hold him like a very short leash and we just go really slow. And that sounds so silly. I know that, but it really does engage muscles, because when they're at their normal gait, they're not trying that hard. That's like very comfortable and very energy efficient. And so that's one easy thing that I do. I make a start or end slow. If you're at and that, again, that's going to work the whole body. So we're working all the muscles of everything, and we're trying to get full range of motion. That's our other goal with the slow walking. We really want full forward, full backward, and do the whole thing. The other thing I do on my little cul-de-sac is whenever we come to a driveway, I'll make my dog sit and stand back up, or I'll make him lay down and stand back up. So super, super simple, easy things. He's already on the walk. And again, think about us doing a squat, right? So whenever a dog sits and stands back up, it's like a squat. We're working our quads, we're working our hamstrings, working our back. And that's why we do the opposite, that I make them go all the way down, because then we're also going to work our front legs.
Yeah.
And we want them to sit pretty, right, if they can, because we want them to be tucked under, and then they're using both limbs equally. So I play a little game, like every mailbox, we have to sit down, and then we stand back up and keep going. And again,
do you do this? Would you recommend doing this with all dogs anyway, just as a general keeping them fit? How old is your dog that you're doing this with?
My dog is 2.5.
Okay. Currently no issues.
Currently no issues. He does have elbow dysplasia, so he had surgery. So I know he's going to have issues.
Yeah.
So I've just tried to incorporate it. At any point you can do this, just in putting it into the walk. And you don't have to do every single thing I'm going to suggest on one walk.
No.
You know what I mean? That's not the point. If you remember one or two, like, oh, great, we did that.
Yeah.
So any dog, and I think those two specifically, those should be like any stage of arthritis, they should be able to walk slow, sit down, stand back up, and for those dogs, even my 2.5-year-old, or a little earlier in arthritis, people think that's not doing anything, right? That sounds ridiculous. And I get that. But if you started doing 5 or 10 squats a day, every day, it would make a difference over time, right? So you think consistently. And that's also a good range of motion one, right? We're going to swish all the way up. We're going to extend all the way back out. Same with the front limbs. If we're going to lay down, we're going to swish all the way up, fully extend. And so you're just going to keep them doing that. And the other question I get is, I think my dog does that all the time anyway. You would be shocked that your dog doesn't do that, right? Like your dog doesn't sit very long unless, like, my dog's, silly. So he like leans on me, right? Or he's sitting on the side, or his legs are up on the couch, right? Like he's not really doing the full range of motion in his muscles. So it would shock you, I think, if you started paying attention, like, oh, they're not doing that as much as I thought, especially as they start to get any arthritis, they're going to avoid those motions.
Yeah.
And if we don't
do them really quickly and get them over and done with.
Exactly. And please interrupt. I talk sometimes.
I just got a question from Stacey here. It says, how does the gait change when walking slow in terms of foot placement?
So the foot, they should be the same, right? They're still going to be flat and they're still going to be staggered. We're just going to be on the ground longer. So we engage those muscles more. So each limb is going to stay on the ground, right? Because once it picks up, we have a little bit of muscle holding it up, but we're really not doing any pushing or pulling. And so that is why the slow walking, they're really like fully weight bearing and engaging and doing the range of motion. Is that the right answer?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully that makes sense, Stacey. And the other thing that I was going to say, which I think I've said on a live before, is that when I was on a course once, and the speaker was saying about the slow walking and how good it is for dogs, and then she got us all to stand up and do it and to walk as slow as we possibly could. And your balance just goes all over the place, because the faster you walk, the easier it is to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And over time, if you're doing that every day, it's going to make a difference to your balance and just generally how you move your weight from back to forwards and backwards. It does make a massive difference.
Yeah. It's funny, right? And that's why, thank you so much for saying that. Because when I first mentioned it, clients were always like, you're silly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really good to do yourself as well.
Yeah, to try it. All right. Any other questions on the slow walking?
They're not on the slow walking. I'm going to bring this one up later, but carry on.
Oh, yeah, because it does seem important. So those are two really easy things to do. In the same relation as the slow walking, wide circles, narrow circles. So because, again, we're going to weight bear and we're going to challenge balance on the inside legs. So we want to go in both directions, right? We want to go to the right. We want to go to the left. And if you do wide, we're really, again, stretching out. We're spending more time on that. Whereas if you do tight, we're really working our balance and our core, right? Because they're trying, you don't want them like spinning and falling over, right? But you want it to be comfortable. And again, they have to fully weight bear and pivot on those inside legs. And those, again, are not muscles unless your dog is outside running around chasing a Frisbee that they're using very frequently.
No.
So those are great ones to do, you know, instead of just like do some turns, do some figure eights while you're walking around, and really use them because especially if they have a more sore limb, right, they're going to offload that one. Whereas if you're doing circles, they can't.
Yeah. And I guess the way to get them to do this would be eventually it's just going to become a habit that they do, but you can use treats and get them moving that way, because you're not just going to say like walk in a big circle. They're not just going to do it. But use your treats, because we all take treats out with us on our walks, or most people do. So it is to get them doing it, and eventually it'll just become a habit that they reach this part of the walk, and that's what you do.
Then they're like, oh, if I do a spin here, if I do a turn here, I get a treat.
Yeah, exactly. And it might even be worth starting to take some videos of your dogs doing these things, maybe once a week. I don't know how often you kind of recommend to do that, but just so that you can, because when you're seeing your dog every day, you don't necessarily notice any changes, but over long term, you can look back and really see if that has helped. I mean, do you get people to take videos of their dogs when they're out?
I do, but I would say probably every few weeks, because it's hard to see changes within a week or two. So I say usually about a month, right? Once a month, try and do a video and say, okay, it is, you know, I do notice something, or he is a little more, you know, sprightly, or using this or that limb more. That's a great idea.
Yeah, no, that's really good. This one's probably relevant actually, that Mandy just put up. The sit has become very difficult for my 13-year-old Malamute cross boxer. He's losing strength in his rear legs. Is it still a good idea to carry on with the squats with the sit to stands?
So if you can, depending on your doggo, because my dog gets a little silly about this, but I do try. You can try and have them sit on like a step. So like I have like a little front porch, right? So I'll try and get him to sit on the step, and then he doesn't have to go as deep. You can stack pillows up behind him, or, you know, something that's soft or more comfortable for them, but it's shortening that range of motion, right? Yeah. So if they will sit, you can do a few more. If it's hard for them to sit, I still think try and make them do 1 or 2 a day, you know, maybe just one at a time. Don't do like multiples so they get super tired. But if we don't make them do anything, it's just going to get less and less, right? So those are my 2 suggestions. Either just do 1, you know, and then be done for a while, or see if we can prop up his butt so that he doesn't have to sink as low to come back up.
And if you were just going to do the 1, would you then say, well, actually, instead of doing it at the beginning of the walk when we start to go, maybe once he's warmed up and it seems a bit more comfortable, that would then be the time to do that?
Yes, like more in the middle, and not all the way at the end, right? Like don't wait till the last thing we're going to do is try and do a sit to stand. Exactly.
Yeah. So what are the other things about on the walks that we should be looking at doing?
The other thing on the walk, if you can, 2 things that, and then I promise I'll move on from walking now.
This is great. This is amazing.
Is over things. So like up a step, down a step. If you live by the woods and you can go over a, you know, if there's sticks on the ground or just anything that's a little uneven, it balance and proprioception, right? Like helping them know where their feet are.
Yeah.
Really good one. And it don't have to be high. You know, I'm not talking like we got to go up 6 steps or 6 inches. It's just making them like really aware of where they're placing their feet and helping with their balance if they have to take a little bigger step or a smaller step. So, you know, try and find a little area like, oh, we got to walk over something. Is helpful.
Because I think the temptation with a lot of dogs, even arthritic dogs, is that I'll just try and pick up a little pace and just go over it quickly. But going back to that slow walking, the slower they think about moving their legs over it, the better.
Exactly. Because they'll get over it, right? You know how they do. They just kind of speed up and like, sometimes they'll hit it, but they'll get over and keep going. And like you said, we want them to be more deliberate about like, oh, I have to move around.
Place. Yeah.
Good muscles. And then also keeps them connected, right, with where their feet are.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good idea. And it's something that I mean, I watch my Labrador. I never walk her on the lead, which is really bad. But she, you know, in the woods, I can see sometimes even she eyes up. She's only 3, but she'll eye up a log, and I see her pick up a bit of pace just so that she doesn't have to put too much effort into going over it. She wants to go over it, but she doesn't really want to do it slowly.
Yeah.
And it's easily done, definitely.
Yeah, because she'll get to a pace where it doesn't cost her that much to do it, right?
Exactly.
Whereas if you make her go slow, she's like, oh, I got to balance on all my other limbs while I lift up. And then she's got to get all 4 feet over it. So
yes,
it's a really good one.
Lots of
If you
thinking
have
involved.
it near you. Yeah.
Yeah. And was there another one while we're out on the walks?
I was just going to say on the curb, I'll sometimes make them go up and like, they're going laterally, but I'll make them like get up on the curb, get down off the curb, get back up on the curb, get down, like just kind of weave in and out of that curb. Try and do both directions if you can. And that way, you know, that's like going up a step, a little incline. If there's you can also do that if there is a little incline, right, or decline that you've been avoiding.
Yes.
You can do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, because a lot of arthritic dogs, they do start to scuff their feet, don't they, and their nails when they're walking. And I think that kind of thing, just the smaller step ups would be really useful just for that proprioception and to remember that I can do these little steps. Because otherwise it's so easy to scuff, and you can really see it on their little nails and their feet. They get really sore with that. So again, something tiny that you could do and that could make a massive difference in the long term.
Yeah.
There's another question here from Kaz that says, sits are difficult for Soda now, but the slow walking in circles she will definitely add in. We walk up slopes and different terrain. This is interesting. Good. I'm pleased that you feel that's interesting and adding in the circles. I mean, like Jen said, that these may not be relevant for every single dog, but there are things that maybe you haven't thought about that can make a big difference. This is an interesting one. My dog has elbow dysplasia and I've been carrying her down any steps. Does this sound like the wrong thing to do?
So there's 2 answers, right? The short answer to me is I would, in controlled situations, right? I don't want your dog like leaping down the steps as fast as they can for fear of falling.
Yeah.
But I do believe in maintaining or even pushing a little bit, right? Because I think sometimes we as owners, we're like, oh, I don't want them to hurt themselves, so I'm just going to avoid the stairs altogether. But if it's controlled and we have a few stairs, I would encourage, if they can and they're safe, to go down those steps if you're with them. And I think knowing, of course, are we too tired? Where are we at in our day? Things like that. But I think if they want to and they can, let them do it safely.
And would you then at that point think, well, actually, I'd rather them do it with maybe a harness that I can help rather than not do it at all? So would you add in like a harness or something to try and you can still help them, but not completely hold them?
Yes, that's a great idea. So you have control and maybe not fully weight bearing, right? If they can't, but at least they're still doing the motion and trying the best they can. I think that's super helpful.
Yeah. So hopefully, yes, not necessarily the wrong thing, but in moderation would be a good thing to make her do some of those steps, maybe.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll come to this one later as well.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about more about the little exercises. Sorry?
I said there's so many good questions. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I know, because you can see them as well, can't you? So I'm just kind of thinking what if they're relevant to what we're talking about right now. But that's fine. We can carry on. We can come back to a couple of those. I've got them in my head to come back to them, so that's fine. So when we get home.
Yes, when we get home. And I guess you could do these on a walk. I find these easier to do in my own home. And so the few things I always start with, and these, I do have a couple videos of both of these. I don't know if we need to show them all, but in case you want to, Nicki.
Yeah, perfect.
Backwards walking and lateral walking. So, you know, dogs normally propel forward, right? And we talked about sit to stands to help with our quads. But backwards walking is very unnatural for your dog, right? At least my dog. Maybe some dogs are really good at it. But it makes them push, right, in the opposite direction. So they're really using those back of the legs that just get so thin, you know, and the bones start sticking out. And when I say it, it sounds really silly. How do we do it? That's why I did it in my own dog. And I use a treat, and you'll see, and I kind of hold it like towards his chest, right? I don't want his head to be too much down. And then I walk at him, right? So I want him to like move back, and he's like following the treat. The other thing you can do, which is really helpful, is if you can create like a little tunnel. So I've taken like cardboard boxes, right? And I'll put them, and then there's something in front, and I put a treat at the end. So they have to walk in, but they can't turn around, and then they have to get back out. So, because they'll go in for the treat, and then they'll be like, you know, if you have like a coffee table, right, you could put it up against your couch, and they have to walk to you on the couch and get the treat, but then they can't turn around. They got to back out. And even 4 or 5 steps, right? I'm not talking across the room 20 yards, but just doing that a couple times really makes them think. It works all different muscles that they don't normally use, and really helps kind of with that range, and it helps push in the front too, right? Because they're going.
Yeah. Shall we show the video of your dog doing that?
Yes.
Just like add it there.
Come on, Liz. Keep going. Come on.
And I have him on a leash in my own home, right? You can see, like, to make sure that he doesn't run away. I don't know if anyone has burners. I apologize. They're not very smart, but I actually think this is a great dog to show it on, because he has like no training. He doesn't have any idea what I'm doing.
But he's doing it. He's doing it because he hasn't really got much option apart from to do it.
Yes. And that's as far as I would go, right? That was like 10 feet. You don't need to get crazy. And you can do it a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really, when you were saying that, it made me think of where I live. I've got like the conservatory. There's a tiny little gap between the fence and the conservatory. And if there's something down there, my cat will go down there and he'll charge down the side of it to get whatever he wants. And then he can't turn around, even though it's a cat, and they're really, really good at kind of flipping themselves. And the speed, like how slowly it takes him to back himself back out again. And it's probably really good for him, actually, because cats, of course, they're going to get arthritis as well. But it makes sense, that tunnel thing, if you think about it like that, when an animal just physically can't turn themselves around, and you automatically will just have to do it a lot slower because your body's not used to going in that direction.
Correct.
So it's really good for you. Probably the same for us as well, I would imagine.
I know. Well, and you see those people, the humans on the treadmill, they'll tell you to like go backwards or sideways.
Yeah.
I've never done that, but probably because I would fall. I could maybe walk sideways, but not on the treadmill.
No, I'm too old for that now. I'm not going to try and do that. But
And so that is the same concept as the lateral walking. And so there's a couple different ways, but what I will do is I hold a treat in front of his head, right? And I am standing along his body, and I have a video of this. And I literally, and it sounds silly, not hard, but I sort of walk into him, right? Like I kind of force him to go left.
Yeah.
If you have an older dog that you're concerned about and it's unstable, I will put a harness or something under him. Like if you have, I don't know what you guys have, but like I had to help him up harness, right?
Yeah.
If I have that on, I'll hold it up, but still make them, you know what I mean? Like place their feet sideways, but I'm taking some of the weight off and going in both directions. But that's really another easy way, right? Because we're worried about those stabilizers. And, you know, in arthritic dogs, all the time you see their back legs go out, right? This works those inner thighs to keep their legs under them. Because they don't do that in real life, right? They just naturally have good adductors, but over time they get weak. So that's a really good one to do. Do you want me to try the video? Yeah. Do I have a minute? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. And would you advise doing these on flooring or on grass or non-slip floors if possible?
Yes. I apologize because I am on a kind of slippery floor. Oh, that's the wrong video. Don't share that.
No, that's okay. I've got one there.
Oh, he's standing up on that.
Is that the right one? No.
That's a good exercise, though.
Should I take it off for now?
Yes. Where did it go? Okay. I just clicked the wrong button. I'm sorry. We're live. Technical difficulties.
Right. Let me go down here. Here's one. Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Is he coming?
Yeah.
Mine's like freezing a little bit, so.
No, you can see. He kind of moves his back legs first and then the front legs.
And they don't move simultaneously, right?
No,
but I literally, I have a big dog, okay? So I can, be a little bit more, right? I have to use a little bit more of my body.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that in a smaller, perhaps better trained dog.
Oh, no. But you can see he's really thinking about it. He's really like moving each one separately to try and think, how am I going to achieve what she wants me to do here and get this treat?
Because they never move like that. Very unnatural, similar to the backwards. But it really is so good for those inner thighs. That's what I tell people. It's good for their shoulders too. But I do that one a lot because we all have that complaint of the splay out, right?
Yeah.
Like we get on an uneven floor and we just sink and our legs go sideways. And this can help with that or help prevent it if we're not there yet.
Yeah, and there was actually one of these questions that I was going to bring up here from Sandal that says, my staff cross who is 14 occasionally falls to one side. Could this be a joint problem or arthritis? Yeah, it could be. And actually those kind of movements to try and stabilize and improve balance would be really useful in conjunction with speaking to your vet, obviously, just to make sure you think it is arthritis. But that kind of thing, if he's falling to one side, yeah, that would be really good for that. Working on strengthening up both sides.
Yeah, because they may have just a really weak, that one limb may be weak, right, on that side if it's arthritis, and we can help build it up. The same with the circles, the side walking, and I would do the circles to that side as well. Big and small.
Just little things. Zoe's just written, you're teasing us with extra videos. Don't worry, we're going to show them. It's fine.
We're going to get there. I don't have that much stuff to say. Everyone just likes to look at my cute dog.
We've got another question from Stacey. So would you put a command to some of these movements? We have a back for the front door. So Woody moves down the corridor, but he will walk backwards when I say back. Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. If you can get them to do it just because it's like something they've learned, then yeah, even better. Perfect.
Yeah. And if you can do a command with any of the lateral walks or the circles, 100%, that would be great.
Yeah. Really, really good. What's that one there? So maybe we could have a look at this one. So from Karen, my girl refuses to use the lovely grass slope I built in the garden. Oh, I know people put so much effort and money into making their houses and gardens perfect for their dogs. And then the dog just goes, yeah, I don't want to use that actually. But always opts for the steps. I rebuilt the steps. There is less of a drop. My girl has elbow arthritis and a sore hip. Should I encourage her to use the ramp more?
I think yes, but maybe not for the reason you're thinking. I think if she can go up the stairs again, like we said, safely, and she's still able to do that, I would let her keep doing it. I think the ramp and slope would be good for just the incline and it's kind of working some different muscles, right? But I did the same thing. My last Bernese mountain dog, I bought this very expensive ramp for my car, and he never got on it one time. I had to pick him up every time. We all make all these wonderful ideas.
I know. I've moved away slightly from the ramps now for cars, and I kind of prefer the steps that you can get for cars, as long as they're not too shallow for the dogs to get up, because I think they prefer them. Mm-hmm. They just jump over the ramps, whereas with the steps they do kind of use them a bit better. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel a lot of dogs actually prefer the steps.
Yes, I think they're comfortable with it, right? Like a lot of dogs haven't seen a ramp. They don't go up in their life. So they'll go up inclines because it's different. But I totally agree. I think if they're not too narrow and not too tall, right? That's a great idea. Is they use, that's how I feel about beds too. Like we buy the ramps for our dogs so they don't jump off the bed, and 99% of the dogs don't use the ramp.
No, they
so
just don't.
For my cat, I just created steps, right, that were at like an appropriate height. And, you know, we all make those sacrifices in our house, right? I had a bench, and I had like one of those little pillow things so he could make his way up to the bed without doing anything.
You see that people often forget about the cats, that they go through exactly the same thing, but they're not happy being on the floor. They must still get to those heights, because otherwise it's affecting they're just, you know, they're depressed, and it's horrible for them. And I love that when you see people and they've made these little kind of levels for them to get up to where they need to go. It's brilliant what people will do now. I love it. Everyone is so good.
I know. Good. They're so good for their pet. Like you said, we always forget about the cats, but my cat would continuously fall because he was getting on the bed. Like that was not an option in his life. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to break something trying to jump because he couldn't make it. And then to your point, he was so happy when he would get on the steps and back down, and then he could be on the bed, and that's all he wanted.
Exactly. It makes them happy. And the same for dogs. If they want to be somewhere, not to the same extent, they don't want to be so high up, but it's frustrating for them if they really want to be to that. But some people have, you know, gardens, especially in London, they have tiered gardens, and there's very steep steps sometimes going up to those taller tiers, but it's where the best sun is, or it's where the best smells are, and they desperately want to get there, and they don't, because they can't, and it's so sad. And we've got to find ways to try and adapt and move our lifestyles with our dogs, and everyone's, as I say, is really on board with that. It's really good. So shall we talk about this little video that we had a little sneaky peek of?
Yes. So I'm using what we call a climb. It has all different names, but in my house it's a climb. But anything that has a little bit of height, and it is going to depend on your dog and their ability level, but I encourage him to just stand with his front legs on that step and give him a couple treats. And as you can imagine, dogs, I know we talk about this on this all the time, but, you know, they bear a little bit more in the front than the back, just kind of flat, right? So this is just encouraging them to use those back legs. And sometimes, you know, I've had rehab patients where we're only this far off the ground to start, right? And then we bump up. Clearly my dog doesn't have issues, right? So I'm on a pretty high step. And that's the video. But also you can do this, have him walk up and over it. So then his back legs are on it and his front legs are off. And then he's getting treats that way. And so we're doing a little weight shifting. But you can, again, use a pillow, use a couch cushion, you know, you could use one of those beds that was anything that has a little bit of a step to it. And I encourage stand there 15 seconds, right? That sounds like nothing. That's a lifetime for some of these. So
let's have a look at it. And it's probably a good idea to use different things not each time, but not always use the same material, the same surface, because otherwise they get used to it, don't they?
Yes.
Let's play that again. So he's just literally standing, and you can see he's leaning back, especially when he takes the treats.
Mm-hmm. And I will sometimes move the treat around, right? So I'll make him use his core a little bit. And I was holding it back so that he did use his back legs more, right? And you can have him reach forward or go to one side or the other, like follow the treat. And then it even works those back legs more.
Yeah.
But this one, it's towards the end, because this one, you need to make sure that your dog is strong enough if you're going to do a bigger step, right? This is one that, you know, there are some dogs in their stage of arthritis that they're not capable yet of doing this particular move. So I think the other ones are pretty friendly, but depending on the height, you know, you could really wear your dog out.
And what would you suggest to dogs that aren't food orientated? How would you get them to stay? Have you got any other suggestions about how to get them to stay in those positions?
Yes. And so in my own practice, a couple funny things you can do if they're not food motivated, because you always have some. I would put that in a place where they had to go up and over it to get out, right? Okay. So if they always want to go to the door, or they always want to go get a toy, or they just want to get away from me, you know, I would put that in the corner and then they have to stand over it. And I tried to stand in front to sort of slow the motion down, so that they had to then, walk over slowly and get past me. But that was a big one. If they want to get to a toy or they want to get to the exit, or and that's why I say on the walk too, sometimes the curb is good because they're outside and they're happy. They don't necessarily want to stand on this step because you're making me and I don't care.
Yeah.
So, or I put it at one house before their slider. So like the dog would go stand because it wanted to go outside on the patio. So it would stand there for a second before we would open the door and let him go out.
Oh, because a lot of dogs do that. If they go out the back door into the garden, that's a really good one actually, because they wait there in the mornings waiting for you to open that door. If you just put a little step there, they have to step on. That's amazing. Yeah, I'd never thought about that.
And it's like, really, I want to get outside, so I will stand on this until you let the door.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good tip, actually. There was something about the steps. Did I bring? No, that was that ramp one. There was one about the steps. Won't use. Oh, it could be this one actually. From Margret, my dog has elbow dysplasia and wants to jump on and off the bed, won't use steps or anything. Should I be doing something different?
This is such a tough one. I'll be honest. This is very hard because even if they're not, super arthritic yet, right? Like jumping down off that bed over time does start to cause an issue.
Yeah.
But it's so hard when they won't at all use any sort of step or anything. And the only thing, and this is, I've never been that successful except if I limit the access to the bed. So they have to go this way. Like I put like a bench on one side and like boxes over here. Like it's, again, this is very dramatic, right? But we all love our dogs.
Yeah.
So there was only one path that he could like make it over, right? So if here's the end of the bed and I have a box that's sticking out, he's not going to jump over the box in the bed, right? And so I made it so that he like would circle the bed like, all right, I guess I have to go up this way.
Yeah.
But even then he would try and jump over the steps on the way down. So that's not a great suggestion, but you have to kind of just keep trying and work with them. And maybe, I don't know. That's a hard one. I'm not helping.
I guess if you wanted to do something that people probably would think you were crazy, but you could just buy a lower bed as well.
That's what I was just going to say. I have people who put their mattress on the floor, right?
Yeah.
That's
People will sleep downstairs. They'll sleep, That
might be above and beyond. I know.
I know, but it's out there. It's something that can be done. There's another one here from Karen. I put my dog's water bowl on the outside stairs, leave house onto porch, and go down six steps to the yard, 1 or 2 from the top. My 11-year-old loves water, so he will stand from either direction to get his water. Another really good way of getting your dog to shift their weight either forwards or backwards. Really good one.
That's perfect.
Things you can do at home that don't cost any money, things you can be doing every single day. Did you have any other exercises that you wanted to bring up on the videos?
Just one more, and then there's some good questions I wanted to talk. And I don't even know how much time we have. So
we have as much time as we want, really, or as much time. Obviously, you have stuff to do as well, so I appreciate that.
The other one that I think about and I really love for inside is uneven surfaces. And by that, I mean like pillows. So I'll literally put a bunch of pillows out on the floor and make my dog walk over them, right? It's really good for core and balance. And I have a client who bought like a really cheap air mattress and like blew it up halfway. Do you know what I'm saying? So the dog walks on it, but it's like a little uneven, and just that weight and core is a really, really easy one. And you can do the same thing, like put it somewhere they just have to walk over it and they don't even have to think about it. It's not an exercise, It's like, oh, well, when I walk out this door, once I get out this door, there's something funny to walk on. Because I think that really helps their core. That's the point of that one. Keep those muscles strong. And, we have such back issues in our dogs, right? Because of a million reasons. And the tighter and better core muscles they have, the more stable their back is and the less pain they're going to have. So those are good ones for core muscles.
all little things that we could be doing immediately, even in our non-arthritic dogs, just to keep their balance. So if we go back up to Kara's question here, Chase is a 10-year-old lab with arthritic elbows and hocks, so front and back legs. He shifts his weight back and now his hips are really tight and starting to lose muscle mass. He's scheduled for hydro when he finishes his shockwave treatment on a shoulder tendon problem. Poor Chase.
I know.
Should I be working on stretches or exercises to prepare for hydro so he doesn't overstretch on the treadmill? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's talking about warm-ups and warm downs more than anything.
No, and that's a great question because we didn't touch on it, but I think that's a great idea. You know, if you're sitting down at the end of the day watching TV, as we all do with your dog, if we have tight hips and you don't, you know, there's really easy videos you can find, but really just moving through that range of motion or, you know, extending just a little bit longer than they normally would can just be so helpful. And I imagine, I know how it feels when I stretch at the end of the day, like how, you know, the dog's going to enjoy it. And then it will make their sessions in the treadmill much more productive if they're already a little looser. So I think that's a great idea. And on that note, I don't think necessarily with all arthritic dogs, just doing these things on the walk, that we have to fully stretch before and after. As long as you mentioned, make sure we're right. Don't do it like the first minute they wake up and they're creaky from the night before, you know, let them work it out. But it is never a bad idea in the morning or at night or before or after a walk to stretch and, you know, let them work it out. I think the thing that we do in our lives unintentionally is, at least I do this, right? I'm working, I take a break, I take my dog for a walk, and then he comes back and lays down. Yeah. Well, think about if you go, right? If we went for a walk, depending on how long it is and where your state dog is at, you know, and then they lay down in one position and then they get up and they're like, ugh.
They're going to get stiff.
So the best advice I ever got, and I always give, and then more questions, is, you know, we are supposed to get up every hour and move around. Make your dog get up every hour and move around too. I mean, it is life-changing for them to even walk into the next room and get a treat and go lay back down. You know, if we have that capability, even on the weekends or at night, right? Even if we have to leave during the day for 8 or 10 hours, like, you know, just make a move. That's so helpful.
And especially with arthritic dogs, little and often is so much better than a 2-hour walk, isn't it?
Exactly.
Even if they probably do it, but they pay for it the rest of the day. And so just getting them up and moving, if you could do 5 minutes every hour, that would be perfect. But obviously you can't, but it would be perfect.
I was going to say, obviously that doesn't work all day long, but you know, I had one of my favorite clients, they were retired and they loved their dog so much. And similar to these questions, they were starting to bring her food, right? Because it was difficult for her to get up. And I was like, I love you and that you want to do that, but we can't do that, right? If we never make her get up, she's not going to get up, you know? And so those are the things we need to walk that line between respecting that they're slowing down, but pushing them a little bit because, you know, if you don't move it, you lose it. And that's what happens. So,
and it comes back to all the things that we talk about on cam about, you know, mental stimulation as well as physical stimulation. And it doesn't mean that you have to take them for a walk every hour or so, but you could just hide a treat somewhere in the garden, especially in the summer, that they could go and find, and they come back and go back to sleep again. Where they've achieved something, they're happy, they've had that distraction of a treat as well, and it's just really, really good for them.
Even though it seems so small.
Yeah, so tiny. Just going back to the bed situation, and Margret was saying obviously about her dog won't use the steps, and we said about buying a new bed, etc. She said, yes, we slept on the floor for months, but getting off the floor was a problem for my arthritic knees. This is a problem. Not really an easy answer, is there, for the bed issue? And
I know it just takes more patience.
This was another good one from Laura, because I was just, when we were talking about when to do some of those exercises, especially in the more painful dogs, and maybe a squat not right at the beginning, in the middle, but not at the end because of the fatigue. And Laura's just put, how do you teach people how to recognize their dog is compensating, in pain or fatiguing when exercising, when these signs can be really subtle and often missed, especially in some breeds where, you know, they will carry on until they literally fall down?
I know, like those labs and stuff, you know, it's so hard to tell because they don't have an off button, right? They don't have a brain. And with some of the signs of fatigue, if you're looking, you will notice, especially on a walk or a little bit of compensation. And one of the biggest ones would be how high we're picking our feet up, right? Like I noticed that a lot. If I look at the beginning of the walk versus where we are 10 minutes from now, we're still at the same pace. We're still smiling. We're happy. We're not panting crazy, but we are not, we were doing this and now we're like a little bit lower, maybe even at the same pace. And I think too, on some of the exercises, you'll see them start to even quiver a little bit, right? Or become more hesitant. And even if they, you know, and then that's kind of the sign for me. But I am overly cautious. Like if I do it 3 times, even if they're not tired, I'm not pushing it, right? I think any little bit is going to help. And so, you know, you don't need to go nuts and do 15 minutes tomorrow, right? Like just do a couple things and then start to see how your dog does with it. And if you notice, even though the subtle changes. But I think picking up the feet, I think the tongue coming out more, and not even from heat, but it's almost like a fatigue thing. Any sort of hesitation, shaking, then we're done for the day. That's how I am. Like, you know, we can go get our food and do whatever, but that's it.
And it will vary from day to day because we all know that our arthritic dogs have little acute flare-ups where maybe you're not going to do anything that day. And that's okay. And it's not like it's something that has to be done every single day. You just have to, like you said, you kind of know your own dog better than anybody. So you're going to pick up on those signs and maybe know when it's not a good day for them. And that's okay. So we've got a question here from Fran that says, when our dog walks up and down stairs, she displays soreness the next day. So we avoid her doing this. Are we doing the wrong thing? That's a good one.
That is a really good one. I guess the hard question is it a bunch up and down the stairs or is it just once or twice up and down the stairs? Like, you know, what's sort of the frequency on those days? And then I think the hard part is, what does she do on the sore days? Then does she not get on the stairs at all? Or do we not let her on the stairs at all? Because in my perfect world, we're doing it maybe once a day more consistently or a couple times. Do you know what I'm saying? Where we're not going up 5-10 times and then 0 and then 5-10 and 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if this will help, Fran, but I think especially at the moment or through COVID, when people were working at home and they were in the house a lot more and then maybe their office was upstairs and they were coming back down for cups of tea and this kind of thing. And the dogs, you know, they will follow you literally everywhere you go. So they were doing more stairs. And I think what we talk about in some of the consultations that I have with my clients is that maybe during the day we have to train our dogs not to be up and down all the time, and they're just coming up and down. They're still going to have to do the stairs, but just do it for times when they're going to be up there for a long time or they're going to be downstairs for a long time, and just try and reduce the frequency but still make them do it. And I don't know if that would be helpful at all, Fran, but I think probably reducing the amount, like Jen said, is it just a short amount of time that she goes up and down that she's then paying for, or is it because she's done it a lot? So maybe look at reducing the amount of time she has to go up and down.
Yeah. I don't want to say 0, but I want it to be less so that she's not super sore. Yeah.
Stairs are a big deal, aren't they? Because you can't get rid of them. You can't get lifts. It's just not something you have to manage. I do think those help them up harnesses are fantastic, because you can't sleep on the floor with your dog every night, and you can't carry a 50-kilo dog up the stairs every night either. So you're going to have to find some way of making sure everyone's happy. Just had one last comment here from Margret say, thank you both. I really appreciate you doing this live. Such a lot of helpful information. It's very enjoyable. But I think everyone would agree. We are over an hour now, so I will let everybody go. But thank you so much, Jen, for coming on this evening. It's been really, really useful. I think a lot of people are going to I'm going to start doing more exercises out on our walks than I normally just put my headphones on, good podcast, and I don't really pay a lot of attention to what she's doing when we're out walking, I'll be honest, but I will be doing more now.
Yes, it's easy to do that. And I just appreciate you guys so much for having me. I love everything that you're doing, and everyone watching was so wonderful. So I'm here if you have any questions, but please, I hope it helped and that you learned something from me tonight.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's saying they have, so that's really good. We will have you back on soon, hopefully. Thank you everyone for joining us and for your comments and questions, and have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.